Let's talk about how to make a test or even a worksheet. I use this often for my courses by using the Pearson test generator, and the test bank allows me to make multiple versions very, very easily, and it formats them really nicely as a worksheet. There's lots of different options. I won't go through all of them here, but I'll hit some of the highlights. Just to give you an idea of what we can do with this is I can make a new test for my course, and I have this set up as my default where I have the honor code set up here with name, and I can quickly double click and edit this and say, okay, well, I need to make a new test for chapter 2.3 or just chapter 2 test, and I can adjust the formatting quite easily. Like, oh, you know what? I need to change the course to math for college readiness, and I can just do some easy adjustments to make a new test. You can type additional directions, whatever you want to do, and it'll let you do different versions. Over here on the left, I have test banks, and I'll show you how to get these, but I picked the book that I'm working for, and my Math for College Readiness uses Lyle as his author. Now, not all books that we have, let alone use, are included or have a test bank. So sometimes you have to find a similar book from an author. I'm not covering very much pre-calculus in my college readiness course, but a lot of these contents are the same. And so I can pick, I'm working on graphs of functions. I pick by chapter, and then I choose whatever topic we're covering, and I want to test on linear functions. It even breaks it down by objectives within the chapter. And I want to go ahead and pick a few questions on, which of these equations is a vertical line, which one of these has a positive slope. And then let's move into the next objective and add in graphing questions with domain. And I can add these items to my test. And then when I go ahead to print this, it gives you an option to print multiple versions. So we'll spend a little bit more time getting in how to make it. I just wanted to show you some of the things that we could do real quick. So to start, let's go over to the Pearson.com, and I showed this website a little bit earlier. You'll, again, need to have a Pearson account as an educator, but if you created one when you made your MyLab and Mastery course, then you should be good to go. It's the same credentials. And what we can do is we can search by subject, and we can go and pick mathematics or whatever subject we're doing, or again, we can search by the ISBN or the author. So I'm going to search for Martin Gay because that's the author of my Algebra 2 textbook, and we're going to look for some test banks. And you're not limited just to your author. As you saw, I had many, many test banks in my test generator. You can pull from any and all courses. So if you just wanted algebra, you could see all the books that include algebra as their topic or in their title, and you can, any course that has a test bank from it, you can use it. And so you can see we've got 199 options in mathematics for algebra, and you can see all the different authors and books that you can choose from. So I'll do a lot of times, I'll make my tests using a different author so that the questions are slightly different and my students haven't seen them as much. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here to intermediate algebra. I'm just going to pick a book. I will say, let the website load. Sometimes it takes a while for the different elements and the frames to load, and if you click on stuff too fast, you may get reloaded to different places that you don't necessarily want to be. So just let it load, give it some time. Once it does load, and I can see it's done loading up here, I want to make sure that it's clicked on I'm an educator. If you click that, it may ask you to log in using your credentials, but you want to click on I'm an educator. And you want to scroll down and you want to go over to instructor resources. So there's a couple things that we want to do from here. We want to go down to test item files, and we want to see if they have a file called TestGen. And that means that there is a test bank available for this book that we can download and pull questions from, and we would want to go ahead and download that. If you don't have the test generator downloaded yet, we're going to have to make sure that we get that in order to use all these resources. And you'll see here, there's a link for the TestGen site, and that's where we're going to get that TestGen software. So I want this book, so I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to download that book, and you're going to get a pop-up that says that you need to make sure that you select your categories and that you can only download a certain number of resources a day. So if you get this, you can click on change categories and you can change these multiple times so you're not stuck with anything. But I've made some adjustments because of different things that I want to download. So just make sure that you have what you want downloaded for your course. And so you can have 10 categories selected here. And so you can edit some of these. I don't see myself teaching very much calculus, so I can go ahead and remove that. And maybe I need developmental math so that I'm able to download this course book. So you can go back. And again, I'm giving it time to load. If you go too fast, sometimes it doesn't quite work. Once you see the loading is done, then you can usually continue. And we're going to go back to test item files. And then we click on the download again, and now we were successfully able to download it. So we're good on there. Our courses are set correctly. Now, they limit the amount of stuff that you can download. This is within a 24-hour period. So you can download a bunch of stuff, wait 24 hours, download a bunch more. You get 8 test banks that you can download or guides within a day, and then 50 or more presentation files during that period. So it's a very liberal use of the technology, so you don't have to worry too much. So just say you got that. Now, say you don't have the test generator program. We need to go to the TestGen site. So let's go ahead and do that now. If you already have the TestGen software, you can go back and start searching for other textbooks and then download those test banks. So from the TestGen website, we're going to go to download TestGen materials. And then we'll go to downloads. And then we will select the desktop application. And then for our school computers, we'll want to choose the desktop application for PC. If you also want to install it on your home computer, you can, and you have a Mac, you can do Mac, but you'll download this, you'll get a download file, and IT will have to install that file for you. So you'll have to put in a tech ticket and say, please install the install_win TestGen, the file that can be found in downloads to their computer, and they'll go through that. They've done that for a few of us already, so they should be familiar with that process now. So you'll have to put in that test ticket for them to install it. Once they have it installed, then you can open up your TestGen program like I have here, and you can add test banks. So here's how we can add test banks and make tests. You'll go to File, and we'll go down to Add Test Bank to Library. And you'll want to find where that test bank was downloaded. So it was downloaded here under Downloads. I don't see anything because it's still in a zip file. So let me go ahead and move that. So I see that I downloaded this file here with the test bank in it, so I can open it up. And what you really want to do when you open it is dig down through the folders until you find the test file. Okay, so it's a .bok test bank file. And you want to go ahead and just right click and you can extract it. It used to be, oh, here we go. We right click on it and you want to click copy. And you can take that, and in your documents, when you have TestGen installed, you'll find a new folder called TestGen. Just go to that and open up the TestGen, and for test banks, you just want to paste it, right click and paste it into here. And that'll add the test bank to this folder. And so this is the one I just added. So Intermediate Algebra 8M, M being the Martin Gay, the author. And so sometimes you can figure out the little nomenclature for the naming here, but you just want to remember that file. So IA8M. And so now over in searching for the test banks, I can close that out. Go back to the documents, and I know I put in the TestGen folder. And there's my new one, IA8M. So I click that and I click open, and it's going to add it right here. Algebra, Intermediate Algebra 8th edition, and then list the author. So when you want to make a test, again, let me start over from here. You can create a new paper test. You can change this heading however you want. If you get it set and you really like the way that that works as a template, click Save as Default, and it'll make that the default. So every new test you make will start with that, and then you can change it. That way I don't have to keep retyping the honor statement every time I wanted to make a new test. And then we're just going to add questions. And so you pick the book, and you can see I have tons of books here. And so I'll bounce from book to book to book depending on the types of questions that I want and what I want to do. And so I'm just going to quickly add some questions. I'll just go into chapter 2 and pick some objectives. And you can just add the objectives, different questions from different objectives. Click them, click Add Selected Items. If you want to select multiple items, what you can do is hold the Control button, and you can select multiple things and then click Add Selected Items. It'll move all of those things over. Over here, if you want to rearrange your questions, you can click on the little blank spot, and you can click and hold and drag it and move those questions around like so. And you'll notice that directions are already provided for sets of problems. You can edit those directions. Okay, you can add or change those directions. And if you take a question and move it to a section with different directions, let's see if I can find different type of direction. It'll change based on the type of the problem. So here we go. All right, so here's a new type of problem. Let's add that in. Okay, you see I added this in. I now have a new set of directions for this question. Graph the solution set of the inequality. And then I go back to that same question set. Well, now we see those directions are the same again. So we'll copy that over. So each set of questions will have the directions the way that you want them. And so if I want to move this to the end so that all the solving equations are together, you can adjust your test however you want. So drag that down to the end. You'll see the number of questions on your test as well as the number of pages. The last page or last several pages will be your answer key. So it'll generate an answer key for you already. Now, you'll notice that these are all fill in the blank, but when I pick them up from the test generator, they're in multiple choice. You can choose whether to have fill in the blank or multiple choice. You can also make individual changes on each question. That's done under Tools. Up at the top, when you click Tools and Preferences, let's make sure we have the test selected, Preferences, and then Test Options. And we can choose the format, display questions in a single or two-column format. You can display answer blanks or no answer blanks. You can have true-false questions. You can adjust those. But this is the big one, bimodal questions. Whenever I have a test or a quiz, I always want it short answer. I don't do multiple choice. And so I want to make sure that bimodal questions are displayed as short answer. But if you're making a semester exam or a final exam or a standardized test that you do want multiple choice, you can set it as multiple choice and it will change it. And you can see now the answers are shuffled, B, C, D, C. And so that is set up. And of course, the answer key will adjust to give you the letters that correspond with each question. So I'm going to go ahead and change that back to fill in the blank because that's my preference. So short answer so they can show work. If you want to give more space or take away space between questions, this is a one-step problem. It shouldn't take them that much space to fill it out, and I don't want to have a huge long test. You can add by pressing enter or take away by doing backspace to create or remove some space between the questions, and you can do that all the way through the document to kind of fix the formatting however you want. Now that we've made our test, we like how it's formatted, let's go ahead and save it so that way we have it for future use or if we want to make changes. So we go to File and we're going to go ahead and save the test as, and wherever you want to save it where you can find it. So I normally save it within whatever chapter I'm working on. So I would go to Algebra 2, Chapter 2. I have stuff kind of organized, and I'll just say example Chapter 2 test. Okay, and it's going to save it as a test file. And so if you click on this test, it'll reopen it within the test generator. And so you can make adjustments to it next year. Maybe you don't like a question or how students did really poorly on one of them. You can make adjustments. Now, you're ready to print your test. You want to give it to your students in paper form. So what we're going to do is go to File. Actually, I'm sorry, we're not going to go to File. We're going to go to Print right here. This little button says Print. And it gives you the option for the number of forms. And this is my favorite part. Now, if you don't change this, it will always be the exact same test. What you see here will be these exact questions with those exact numbers, that exact order, nothing changed. I could print this 1,000 times and it will be the same test. But if I change this to say 2 versions, well, the first version, version A, will be this exact test as it is as you see it now. But the second version, it will change the numbers. So I usually like to preserve question order because I'm usually very specific about the question order on my test. But if you want to shuffle the questions, maybe it's a makeup exam and you've already, the students have already kind of reviewed the test and have already taken it. You've got one student with a makeup exam, whatever reason it is. You can leave this unchecked and it will shuffle all the questions. And it will make sure that each question has the appropriate directions to it, but it will shuffle it up and change that formatting. So I'm going to preserve the question order. If you want, I don't know why you would do multiple versions and then preserve the number of values, but you can. Maybe you're shuffling the questions. But if you click this, every version will have the exact same questions. None of the numbers will be different. Preserve the answer order. Again, it won't shuffle it up. This is for multiple choice. Print correlation of questions. It will tell you the chapter and the section. I don't ever use that because I don't need it. So usually I'll just preserve the question order and I'll hit OK. And it will ask me to print or save it. I'll usually save it. That way I have the PDF and then I can print it as I want. So Microsoft print to PDF and I go ahead and click print and then it comes up with the saving option. So save it somewhere that makes sense to you where you'll be able to find it. I'm going to do the worst thing ever and save it to my desktop. Example test version A. And it will differentiate. I'll show you how they show up differently. So example test version A, I click save and it's going to run the next version and ask me to save that one as well. Example test version B. It'll do this however many times you ask for a different form. So if you ask for 10 different versions, it's going to ask you to save 10 different versions. So it's finished processing those. Let's go ahead and open those up and see what our tests look like. So on the desktop, I've got both of these tests. So I'll go ahead and open test version A. And I'll also go ahead and open up test version B. Let's see if this does 2 windows like I want. No, it doesn't. So let me split these so we can look side by side. Okay. So here's our 2 tests. The PDF, you can see the headers are exactly the same. The questions are in the same order, but we can see the numbers are different. So it just algorithmically generates it. So they'll have different answers. The one on the left, the answer will be 8. The one on the right, or sorry, negative 8. And the one on the right, it'll be negative 5. Okay, so they'll have different answers, but the questions are going to be the same style of questions. Very similar to how the questions show up on their homework on my lab, is that the questions will be the same style with algorithmically generated numbers. And so you can see at the bottom, this one's labeled version A, this one's labeled version B. It does that automatically so that you know which kid is taking which test. And then when you have the answer key printed as well, you know, okay, this is the key that goes to version A. This is the key that goes to version B. Okay, so you can see they're very similar, but the answers aren't exactly the same. You can shuffle the questions if you want. The answer keys will adjust. And then when I print this for my students so that they can actually take the exam, I just make sure that when I actually print it to my printer, I adjust the pages and don't include the answer key. So I know the answer key is on page 3, so I adjust the pages to be 1 to 2 so that I'm not including the answer key, and then I can print all the copies that I need, and then you can print this again so you have the answer key, whatever you want to do. Okay? And so that's how you make a test. And if you find you don't like it, you can open up the test file and fix something and then reprint it, and you're good to go. And it gives you lots of versions. I normally will print anywhere from 4 to 6 different versions to use throughout the day for my classes. I never use version A because that's what I use for my um, testing, my draft, when I check everything. And so I'll actually make 5 versions, and I use versions B through E. Or if I do 6 or 7 versions, and I'll use the extra one. So you can do however you want, but it does help that you can make multiple versions really, really easily so that cheating is much more difficult in your courses. And the last thing I want to point out is that you don't have to use this just for tests. You can make any worksheet out of this. You just change the title at the top. And so instead of a chapter 6 quiz, well, now I'm going to get rid of the honor code and I'm going to change this to be a chapter 2 practice worksheet. And now you have a worksheet, and you can do formatting, make this a header, let's center it, make it a little bit bigger. Let's add a spot over here for the date. Fill in. And so now when you have that, well, now I have a worksheet with directions included on there. And so you can use this for a lot of different tools. Again, it's algorithmically generated. If anyone's ever used, CUDA Math or anything like that, similar kind of process, really, really easy way to make a lot of worksheets or tests.